Hello everyone. As Matt said, I am Mike Callaghan. I am a technology cast member at the Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. You might be wondering what that means. So let me start briefly by telling you what I don't do at Walt Disney World. I don't sell popcorn at Hollywood Studios, nor do I sell ice cream in Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom. I am not a ride tester. I don't hang out with Disney characters all day long. I am not with the video crew that works media events. I'm not a tour guide for youth groups. I don't work parade detail for the Super Bowl MVP parade. I'm not a corporate trainer, but we're getting closer. I've done all of those jobs that I just mentioned more than once, but they aren't part of my day job. I'm a lead software engineer for Disney Parks experiences and products. Now, I want to clarify that it's a lead, not the lead. It's simply a title. It means that I'm capable of leading a project. So I started at Disney almost 10 years ago, hired as part of the .NET Center of Excellence. Really cool sounding name. That team was eventually dissolved, and I found myself doing more and more development work, specifically web development work. I stumbled upon the Ionic framework when it was in early beta, while looking for some information about how to use AngularJS with Cordova to make a mobile app. That led me to building a few small mobile games with Ionic, and my respect and admiration for Ionic, both the framework and the company, has only grown since. I've often said that if I couldn't work here at Disney, I'd love to work at Ionic. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how the Ionic framework saved one of our projects and helped preserve the magic for our guests. And before I do, I want to give a quick shout out to Marty Callaghan and his comments from earlier today about empowered teams. We were brought in early, very early in the process that I'm going to discuss, and we were involved every step of the way. And I think that's one of the reasons it went as well as it did. So one hot summer day, my team received a somewhat frantic email. Due to some hardware support issues, a very large and very visible part of our business was at risk of being shut down. They wanted to know what we could do about it. In this presentation, I will describe some of the challenges we faced and the solution we ultimately provided to keep the business running and the magic alive for our guests. It revolves around Disney's Magical Express, a service offered to guests staying at a Walt Disney World Resort hotel. It provides complimentary motor coach transportation between Orlando International Airport and Walt Disney World. It features complimentary luggage delivery. That means not dealing with rental cars or the vast network of Central Florida toll roads. It also means you can't get lost. If you've ever visited Walt Disney World, you might be familiar with how this works. A few weeks before your trip, you receive some luggage tags in the mail. The tags contain three things: some barcodes identifying the tag itself, the Disney Resort area where you'll be staying, and the short name of the resort itself. As you can see here, this is the Magic Kingdom Resort area for the Polynesian Hotel. You simply affix these tags to your bags and check them at the airport as you normally would before your departing flight. The magic happens when you arrive at the airport. When your flight lands and you get off the plane, look for signs that direct passengers to Disney's Magical Express. Rather than retrieving your luggage at baggage claim, you and your family can head straight to Disney's Magical Express Welcome Center in Terminal B. Once there, a Disney cast member will check you in, matching your reservation to the appropriate resort queue. Then you will board a luxury motor coach, at which point you can sit back and enjoy a comfortable ride to your resort. Soon after your arrival, your luggage will be delivered straight to your room. When your trip is over, you can even check your bags and get your boarding pass from most airlines right at the resort before you return home. The process works completely in reverse on your return trip. So once you've seen the operation in action, it's natural to wonder how we keep track of your luggage the whole time and get it to you in a timely manner. It's a large task that's solved by technology. When a flight lands at the airport, all the bags bearing these Disney luggage tags are removed from the airplane and sent to a remote sorting facility. They never even enter the airport. The bags are sorted into groups based on their destinations. From there, they're sent to their individual appropriate resort hotels, and then finally sorted further and delivered to your room. At every step of the process, that barcode on your luggage tag is scanned and sent into a database so that we know exactly where your bags are at all times. The barcode contains no private information. It's simply a number that the system can use internally to correlate to your reservation. This lets resort cast members know which room your bag should be delivered to. It's really a simple and straightforward process until it suddenly wasn't going to work anymore. On that fateful summer day, we were told that the airport's Wi-Fi was being upgraded to a new security standard. Unfortunately, the old Windows CE-based handheld scanners that we used were no longer being supported by the manufacturer and would not work on the new Wi-Fi. We were asked to solve the problem before the Wi-Fi upgrade happened. Our first question back to the business was what type of hardware they had in mind. They were looking at 3 potential options. An Android device that was specifically designed to work in the unforgiving warehouse environment of the sorting facility, an iPhone or possibly an iPod Touch. The Disney resorts already had success using iPhones, and they weren't comfortable with the idea of their cast carrying multiple devices. However, the managers in the sorting facility were concerned that iPhones wouldn't be resilient enough for their operation, so they wanted to know if we could support both. Excuse me. Our immediate response was, yeah, we could, but it would most likely double the development cost, or the development time, or probably both. Not surprisingly, they weren't thrilled by that news, and the timeline was somewhat fixed, so there wasn't a lot we could do about that. Our choice came down to forcing the business to pick a single platform or spinning up 2 teams to build 2 separate applications. Some members of the team suggested that we simply build a mobile-friendly website. After all, HTML5 can support a device's camera. Could we develop and deploy a simple web app that could get the image of a barcode from any device with a supported browser, send it to a remote service to extract its data? Would that work? Turned out not to be quite that simple because creating that barcode decoder service was not trivial. The time to send the image to the remote web service wasn't huge, but it wasn't instant, and the camera doesn't respond that quickly. And it turned out the business wouldn't be using the device's camera anyway. They used a custom barcode scanner, so we were forced to rethink our approach. That's when we started looking at Ionic framework. I had some practical experience with Ionic, building a few mobile games, and I knew how easy it was and how enjoyable it is to use. Every app you see on the screen here is an Ionic framework app, available in either Google Play or the App Store or both. We knew that Ionic would do the heavy lifting of interacting with the hardware and providing a host for the web application code to run directly on the device, as opposed to a remote web server. So we knew we would be able to use our standard web skills, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And Ionic had made an early architectural decision to support Angular, which is something we were all familiar with. And it provided a native look and feel on both platforms, Android and iOS, intelligently providing the appropriate look and feel based on the device it's running on. We had a lot of Angular developers on our team, so we thought this might be a good solution. The only stumbling block would be that custom barcode scanner. Could Ionic support it? I emailed our technical support contact for the company who makes the scanner with a simple question. Have any of your customers ever used Ionic with your scanner? His reply was something to the effect of, well, I've never heard of Ionic. But if you can use Cordova, I have a plugin you can try. As Mike mentioned earlier this morning, Cordova it's been around a while. It's an open source framework that lets the mobile application code written in JavaScript talk to the physical device. So the fact that they had a plugin for Cordova was welcome news, even if they hadn't heard of Ionic. Better news, at the time of our project, Ionic and Cordova was they were pretty tight. So all the pieces were coming together for us. Over the next few hours that day, I downloaded the Cordova plugin for the scanner hardware and created a small proof of concept application. It wasn't pretty. It simply registered a handler for the scanner's data callback event and displayed the proper barcode details in JSON in the browser, just in text. But what it showed us is that we could indeed get the data we needed from the scanner. The next day, I was able to get one of the test iPhones from the business and one of the scanners and had a fully functioning demo to show to them. It could read and decode any common barcode that I tried, such as a soda can, a box of tissues, the QR code for a website. It read the serial number off the phone in the conference room. Even better, it scanned and decoded in less than 200 milliseconds. If you've ever used the camera to read barcodes, you know that 200 milliseconds is an improvement. The last test was ensuring that it could decode the barcodes on our luggage tags, and it passed that test with flying colors. So with the proof of concept successfully completed, we officially made the decision to use Ionic, and we started putting together some prototype web pages. Ionic provided us with some attractive components right out of the box. The Ion header gives us a fixed spot at the top of the screen to hold the menu buttons and titles. The Ion segment is used to provide the user with some filtering options. In this case, what type of locations are we displaying? Airport or resort locations? Ionic provided more than 500 professional scalable icons and makes it easy to attach them to other entities. And the Ion list allows a developer a straightforward method of providing long lists of information without it being overwhelming. Development was done with standard web servers to begin with, and throughout most of our first iteration, we still had no idea which device would be selected. But it didn't matter because we were now confident that we could support both. Over the next few iterations, we worked closely with our business partners to ensure that the most critical features were developed first, followed by the next most critical, etc. In other words, we were agile. We engaged our UI design team for their input on styling and theming to get a basic homepage layout. Because the application would be considered guest visible, meaning that it's possible that a guest could see the application, even though they don't use it, it still had to follow certain visual guidelines. Application screens needed to use specific fonts and colors, but Ionic made such style and theme customization easy. We knew that we had to scan barcodes and get them into the existing backend services, so that's where we focused our early efforts. The next step in the process was to be able to scan the luggage after it was delivered to the guest's resort room. Once we proved we could read the barcodes, we needed to show that we could integrate their existing workflow. It wouldn't help them much if everyone had to be retrained. That meant intelligently understanding all the different types of barcodes that we could be scanning and what it meant when they are scanned. I've already mentioned the luggage tags, which are affixed to your bags, but that's only a small part of the story. Before bags arrive at the sorting facility, the first scan is actually of the warehouse employee's ID. This tells us who is doing the scanning. Then, before any luggage scans take place, we need the user to select a location where they're working. Though we wanted to implement GPS capabilities, time constraints didn't allow it. At each scan, there are some expectations that must be met for the scan to be considered valid. To that end, the UI is designed with some visual cues. First, the currently logged in user is displayed in the menu bar. Second, the current location is displayed prominently in both text and image. Each resort or airport location has a unique image. If the image doesn't match the user's location, they can tap Change Location and quickly select the correct one. Just below that is the scan type. Tapping that will let the user change it. As you can see here in this screen, the scan type is shown as Arrived at Resort, and the resort is set to Kidani Village. If the next barcode scanned is not a cage of luggage destined for Kidani Village, instead of the green box you see, it would flash red and play a very annoying sound. We don't want bags to end up in the wrong location. If for some reason the hardware scan button doesn't work, the user could opt to type the number in directly. To my knowledge, that feature has never been needed. The entire UI is implemented with simple Ionic components, data bound to variables and functions written in Angular. Here are some examples of some of the other resort images we use. The cast members working at those resorts are accustomed to seeing these images, so including them is visual feedback that their scanning system is ready for them. Knowing where the scan is occurring allows us to make some assumptions and sanity checks. If you're in the sorting facility and you scan a luggage tag, then we know the bag has arrived at the airport facility. The information is relayed to our central database with the ID of the person scanning and the time the scan occurred. The luggage is then physically moved to a loading zone based on its resort area, with other bags going to the same resort. At each loading zone, an empty luggage cage is opened and scanned, followed by a quick scan of every bag loaded into it. When the cage is full, it is locked and scanned again. This indicates that every bag in the cage is ready to be loaded onto a truck. The destination of the cage is deduced by the luggage tags that have been scanned as they were loaded. Any inconsistencies are flagged as they happen. Each locked and secured cage is loaded onto a nondescript truck for its journey to the resorts. The truck has a barcode that's scanned first, followed by each cage as it's loaded. When all the cages are on the truck is closed and scanned again. When the truck arrives at the resort, it's scanned again and opened, followed by each cage as it's unloaded. Each cage is scanned as it's opened, at which point we double-check the current location matches the cage's destination. In addition to the visual check of the tag to ensure the bags are at the right resort, the scanner will buzz loudly if the guest's reservation doesn't match the current resort. As each bag is scanned, the application will display the guest's name and room number, which is then written on the tag for additional redundancy. The bags are then staged to be delivered by resort personnel. The final scans occur when the luggage is delivered to your room. There's a way to scan the room itself that I'm not going to go into. But that happens first. Then the luggage is delivered into the room and each bag's tag is scanned again. At this point, the luggage is considered delivered and the process is complete. At each step along the way, the system is comparing the scan that was made with the scan that it was expecting. Each scan is logged and submitted to the central database with a timestamp. This allows ResortCast to know where your luggage is at all times. For the final room delivery scan, we added an extra check. When the luggage scan is tagged, when the luggage tag is scanned into the room, the system does a final check to ensure that the reservation connected to the bag matches the room it's being delivered to. If not, it complains loudly. At that point, the cast member can look up the reservation on the handheld to find the correct room. And this happens more often than you might expect. Guests can and do change rooms for a variety of reasons. And that change could have occurred between the time the luggage was staged for delivery and its actual delivery. It's also possible that the cast member delivering the bag simply read the room number wrong. So this final check helps ensure that the guest's luggage gets delivered to where it belongs. By the way, you may be wondering what platform we ended up choosing. Throughout development and our early testing, we tested on iPhones and the scanning devices we had been provided. Eventually, the decision was made for which device or devices would be used. As you might know, iPhones aren't the most durable products available, and Apple doesn't make custom hardened versions available. We assumed the airport personnel would end up using their hardened Androids that they wanted and that the resorts would use their existing iPhones. It turned out, though, that the company providing the barcode scanner had a better solution for us. It's a rugged case designed for extended use in an industrial environment with a built-in barcode scanner. An iPhone can be inserted into this product and locked into place. Once installed, the iPhone is just as durable and less expensive than the custom Android model they had been considering. If you can, imagine an OtterBox with a built-in hardware barcode scanner. It also includes an extra battery, allowing it to be used all day without needing to be recharged. In the end, it was decided that everyone would use iPhones. The barcode scanner added some bulk to the devices used at the resorts, but this was considered a better solution than asking our cast to carry multiple devices. So while we ultimately chose a single platform, we're not locked into that decision. With some minor configuration changes, we could easily support Android devices in just a few days. Selecting Ionic is what made that possible. Not everything was perfect, of course. We did face our share of challenges along the way. As development and testing continued, we ran some scanning tests at remote parts of the resort to ensure a stable network connection. At one of these tests, I helped deliver luggage to a distant building at Disney's Port Orleans resort. It became apparent rather quickly that we wouldn't be able to rely on strong Wi-Fi everywhere. We needed offline support. Fortunately, Ionic provides an easy-to-use storage mechanism. After each barcode scan, the details of the scan need to be sent to a remote web service. The payload isn't large, but could fail for a number of reasons. The network might be down, service might be down, the user's authentication token may be expired. Though all of these things are rare, we needed to take them into account. So if the call fails, the data is placed into persistent storage on the device itself. This is a SQLite database managed by the Ionic storage library. When the network is available again, and I'm ignoring the authentication problem for now, the saved scans are pulled from the database in the order they were stored, and the network call is made again. This process is repeated until storage is clear. By the way, this diagram is an example of why I'm a developer and not an architect. For the most part, the user scanning bags is unaware of any network issues. The only indication we provide is that small orange badge on the top of the menu icon, showing the number of offline scans currently stored in the database. Incidentally, that badge is also a built-in Ionic component. We literally didn't have to invent anything in this project. We simply focused on our business logic. During the first few months of our development, we built and deployed the app manually on our respective computers. However, that wasn't going to work into production, which left us with a problem. Our existing systems at Disney and our organization were designed to build and deploy web applications, not mobile applications. Now, we do have at Disney, we have native iOS and Android apps, but the teams that maintain them are on the other side of the country in a different organization. We didn't have access to their systems or their people, particularly for a system and a project that had to go so quickly. So over the final month or so of the project, we cobbled together a CI/CD system with a spare Mac Mini someone found on their desk, Jenkins, an open source CI/CD system, and we were able to find someone at Disney Corporate who got the developer certificates we needed to build a signed iOS application. Another hitch is we aren't going to the App Store. Fortunately, we were able to piggyback onto our existing corporate iPhone management system. We simply gave them a signed application and a list of the iPhones it would be installed to, and they took care of the rest. If we were doing that project again today, we wouldn't have to go through all that. We could simply use Ionic AppFlow and let them do the heavy lifting for us. Granted, we still aren't going to the App Store, but we could leverage their complete CI/CD system to do the builds and app signing for us with each mainline commit. If nothing else, that alone would have saved us more than a few weeks of effort. Ionic is great, but what might have happened if we hadn't used it? It's not often that you get to find out the answer to that question, but in my case, I got the answer relatively short time later. The My Disney Experience app, which you may be familiar with, is a native application available for both Android and iOS. It's maintained by multiple teams, with the Android and iOS teams being largely independent from one another. One day, some executives asked if we could add a feature to it. It was a fairly modest feature, but they were shocked by the estimates they received from the native teams. They wanted to know whether we could deliver a hybrid version, faster and less expensive. Naturally, my mind went immediately to Ionic, and I suggested it as a proven strategy that we could use right away, but I was quickly disappointed when they refused. Ionic had not been approved for guest-facing applications, only cast-facing. and there wasn't enough time, they said, to get it approved. Instead, the feature was to be implemented as a pure web app displayed in an in-app browser. I tried to explain that that's exactly what Ionic is, and we'd be better off not trying to rebuild our own version of that. I lost that argument, and the project was approved without using Ionic. Without going into too many details of the feature or the development process, here are some things I can tell you. It was a single feature, UI only, with a much smaller scope than the handheld scanner project. Our team was approximately the same size as the team that built the app for Disney's Magical Express. Ionic provides smooth native page transitions when you navigate from one page to another. I had to write those myself. Ionic's automatic theme selection to look native is based on the underlying platform. It's there. They give it to us for free. We didn't have time for that, so all of our features look like iOS. Ionic gives the developer a bridge to send messages between the native app and the web app. We had to build that. In the end, though the project was successful, we had to spend a lot of effort on things that Ionic would have given us out of the box. So why have I told you this? Why did they invite me here today? I'm hoping that this story may have inspired you to use Ionic for your next application project. Since the project has gone live, Ionic has grown and matured beyond anything I would have ever have imagined. And Max Lynch touched upon a lot of this morning. Ionic version 2 was a major rewrite using Angular 2 and TypeScript. Version 3 improved some native styling and more support for accessing native mobile features. They invented and shipped capacitor, their improved hardware compatibility layer, and it's only gotten better since then. As of version 4, as I'm sure you know, it's no longer tied to Angular. Adopting the web component standard made it easier for them to support a variety of frameworks, or if you prefer, no framework at all. Late last year, they shipped an official library for React, and October of this year for Vue. And as Max said this morning, Ionic is still all about the web. And every platform the web supports is supported by Ionic. Whether you want to build an Android app for the Play Store, or an iPhone app for the App Store, a progressive web app for a web server, or even a desktop app with Electron, Ionic's got you covered. So at Disney's Magical Express, what began as a potential disaster went on to become a successful product rollout. We finished ahead of schedule and under budget. We were already on the new system when the airport Wi-Fi upgrade started. We chose Ionic because we didn't know at first whether we needed to support Android or iOS. We didn't have the budget to spin up 2 teams or the time to build it twice. Ionic's attractive components let us build something quickly that satisfied the design requirements of our UI team. Offline mode made it easy to deal with sporadic internet at both the airport and the resorts. And though initially our builds were challenging, we ended up creating some patterns we could reuse in building future mobile applications for continuous delivery. I ran into one of the business managers from Disney's Magical Express at a technical showcase about a year after the product release. She said that the application was still going strong with no major issues discovered. She said, it just works. She further told me that that was one of the smoothest projects she'd ever been a part of. And I'd like to think that Ionic helped make that possible. Normally, I present to groups with the idea of recruiting new talent to Disney parks. And at this point, this is where I would plug how great it is to work here and provide a URL to all our technology job openings. But as you know, this is anything but normal. First, I'm pretty sure you folks don't want me trying to poach your employees. Second, we really aren't hiring much right now. All aspects of the economy have been affected by COVID-19, and Disney parks haven't been spared. In fact, we've been forced to downsize some of our talented cast members across much of our organizations. So instead of telling you how great it is to work here, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about what Disney's doing to help those of us or help those cast members who used to work here. And I'm hoping the guys at Swarkit are still listening, because there's an opportunity here. Disney's supporting these employees in a number of ways, one of which is including working with out-and-out placement service to provide a Disney-dedicated talent directory that allows those affected by the layoffs to create a professional profile, making it easier for recruiters and hiring managers to connect with, identify, and hire former Disney talent. If you or your company is in the fortunate position of looking for talented people to add to your roster, please have a look at disney.risesmart.com. These are all talented former Disney cast members who were affected by the recent layoffs. In preparation for this talk, I scrolled through the directory and was a little surprised to find names of people I've worked closely with over the years. I expect if you review the list, you're going to find someone whose skill set will be a fit at your company. I can assure you, you will be very hard-pressed to find anyone more attuned to customer service than a Disney cast member. I appreciate your attention. It looks like I ended a little earlier than we thought, but at this point, I'm happy to take as many questions as possible in whatever time we have remaining. Afterwards, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'm Walking River.